Welcome to the New Flesh podcast, the podcast you deserve. My name is Jonathan Astro. With me is Ricky Allpike, and surprise, surprise, we have Sheila with us today. How are you, Sheila?
Ta-da! Here I am. This is my debut. Side boob.
Look, let's just be clear. AJ hasn't been assassinated or fired.
No, I'm just standing in. I'm just standing in.
So Sheila's standing in. So, that'd be pretty cold though if we were just what I mean?
We disband and then we reform with Sheila.
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
God.
Did it?
You guys would have to be desperate. This is desperate times.
Well, it is desperate
to have
times.
me on the air.
It is desperate because we reviewed as part of our Spooktacular for the next few weeks. So good. We did Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th part deuce.
For fuck's sake, honestly, this was really heavy going, guys. It took me 2.5 days to get through them. I just had to keep walking away, resetting myself and coming back and just going, no, but
to be fair, this doesn't make sense because where do you get off? You've watched Sharknado and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Frightmare.
And World of Warcraft.
And Driller Killer and Tomb Raider 2.
Yeah, why was this such a big deal?
This is caviar compared to that.
Then you watch garbage.
These were fucking terrible. They were terrible. Anyway, get into it.
Okay, all right. Well, we need to start with a synopsis. Ricky.
Okay, here it is. Friday the 13th, part 1. In 1958, at Camp Crystal Lake, councillors Barry Jackson and Claudette Hayes sneak inside a storage cabin to have sex, where an unseen assailant murders them. 21 years later, camp councillor Annie Phillips is driven halfway to the reopened Camp Crystal Lake by Enos, a truck driver, despite warnings from the town's local crazy named Ralph. While driving, Enos warns Annie about the camp's troubled past, beginning when a young boy drowned in Crystal Lake in 1957. After being dropped off, she hitches another ride from an unseen person who chases her into the woods and slashes her throat. At the camp, councillors Ned, Jack, Bill, Marcy, Brenda, and Alice, along with owner Steve Christie, refurbish the cabins and facilities. As a thunderstorm approaches, Steve leaves the campground to stock supplies. After Jack and Marcy get hot and heavy on the bottom bunk, unaware that Ned, our killer's first victim, is dead on the top bunk, the camp councillors start being picked off one by one. Worried by their friends' disappearances, Alice and Bill, the last remaining councillors, leave the main cabin to investigate. They find the axe in Brenda's bed, the phone's disconnected, and Ned's truck out of commission. When the power goes out, Bill goes to check on the generator. Alice heads out to look for him and finds his body pinned with arrows to the generator's room. She flees to the main cabin to hide, only to be traumatized further when Brenda's body is thrown through the window. Soon after, Alice sees a vehicle pull up and rushes outside, thinking it is Steve. Instead, she's greeted by Mrs. Voorhees, a middle-aged woman who claims to be an old friend of Steve and his family. She reveals that her son Jason was the young boy who drowned in 1957, blaming his death on the councillors who were supposed to be watching him, but were having sex instead. Revealing herself as the killer, she attempts to kill Alice, but Alice knocks her unconscious. At the shore, she tries to kill her again with a machete, but Alice gains the advantage and decapitates her. Exhausted, Alice boards and falls asleep inside a canoe, which floats out on Crystal Lake. Suddenly, Jason's decomposing corpse attacks her, at which point she awakens in a hospital, surrounded by a police sergeant and medical staff who are tending to her. When Alice asks about Jason, the sergeant says there was no sign of any boy. The film ends with a shot of ripples in Crystal Lake. All right, guys, what did we make of Friday the 13th, part 1?
Sheila, have you seen these movies before? In full?
Yeah, look, I think I saw them when I was about 13. They didn't really stay with me. I'd forgotten that Mrs. Voorhees was the killer.
Oh, well, so it was a surprise all over again.
It was.
Did you spend the whole first movie wondering where Jason was?
Yep.
That's great. Well, then you would have gotten killed in Scream because that was one of the questions.
And I was also looking for his hockey mask. But
right.
Then I had to look it up.
3.
Yeah, number 3. And the hockey mask is so iconic.
Well, it's funny. Like that's the word. You said it. This is an iconic film series. There's so much that's iconic, and we'll talk about the first film, but what's great is that the most iconic things aren't even in the first film. So what we've got is the title, which Sean Cunningham says basically sold the movie before anything happened. He was like, I had this title, and they came up with a movie. So they had that. We've got the music, which is quite iconic. However you want to do it. I think it's actually ki and ma, but but for my whole life it was chi chi tai tai. That's iconic. We've got the mythology of Jason and his mother is iconic. Those shocking endings. So it is a shock to realize that Jason doesn't arrive till 2 and the mask doesn't come till 3, and then a lot of the the stuff of the slow walking with the machete and that isn't really established until much later. So here we're witnessing the birth of a legend.
Yeah,
but that wasn't your.
It's an evolution.
It is.
So were you were disappointed, Sheila? It didn't have all the good stuff in it that you were hoping for.
I just found it just like the acting is appalling, absolutely appalling. Like
Really?
really difficult, and I found them really hard going, and also there were the believability. I mean, seriously, you telling me that old lady Voorhees had the physical strength to throw another woman through a window, a dead body? I mean, the suspension of disbelief is quite.
It's the spirit of
something.
Jason.
It's really, but Jason was like 12 when he died.
So true. No, those are good points. There's the logic of Mrs. Voorhees, because I quite like her performance, his sort of campy performance at the end. She's an older style performer.
Yeah, like Ralph. Thespians.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ralph's his performance is very big, and he's like acting for another film. He's in Fiddler on the Roof.
That's right. It's got a death curse.
Yeah.
So,
his performance is big.
But Mrs. Voorhees' fighting is it's not good. I mean,
No.
It's entertaining though.
No, but she looks like it. I want to go and put a blanket around her and just get her a cup of tea, And instead, she's trying to kill freaks, and that is just. It looks like it's cold, and she's going to do a hip,
Yeah.
And this is just a PSA to anyone who finds themselves in a position of getting sort of the upper hand on a serial killer. Actually, like cut their head off, or really like make sure they're dead. Like stab them 900 times. Don't let them have the opportunity to awaken. Old lady Voorhees woke up from being unconscious 3 times. Now,
but this is the burden of knowledge, though, because this film is the first. Well, sort of. There are a couple of films before. Halloween comes before, a few years before, but this film does owe a lot to an Italian film which I've seen called Bay of Blood by Mario Bava, and we just got to mention that because if you watch that movie, you sort of get a bit outraged. You sort of just go, "Oh my god!" Like this is like it's from the maybe the early 70s, late 60s, and it is a bunch of people going to a locale and being picked off, and some of the deaths, the most famous deaths, being pinned together with a spear, is from that film and stuff. So you do get a little
lifted a lot of material.
Yeah, and they never, and they've sort of dodged it as well, and they've never. So it's fine if you come out and say, because Mario Bava's a genius, he's an incredible filmmaker, and if you just come out and say we love Mario Bava, and it's fine. They've never done that. They've sort of ducked and weaved, and and I don't.
There's a lot of talk about its similarities to Halloween, and there's a comparison there. They talk about that all the time. Yeah,
but this is more glaring. This film is Bay of Blood. You just watch it and you go, oh my god, this is the film. To a certain degree. But that's sort of the proto slasher. But this is the beginning of the slasher film. As it creates its own genre, and all the stuff you just mentioned, Sheila, is covered in Scream 1 and 2. And famously. But I guess in 1980, for whatever reason, well, look, even then, the 3 times getting up is too much. But there must all of these things that we take for granted now are in this movie. A lot of them, I think, were sort of in process of being built, like the, those jump scares and like the endless getting up at the end, the shock endings, all of those things. Like now, it's so painful now because I'm pretty sure you could watch episodes of Quincy that do the same thing, or whatever episodes of House that probably use stuff from this movie.
Yeah, you do have to look at it with that in mind, that a lot of these tropes and techniques are cliche now, but back then they weren't. But I did find myself generally having a jump scare at times, particularly in the second Friday the 13th with the cat in the sort of opening scene. Nice. It's kind of a fake scare. That got me because the music is so effective as well.
Well, they talk about the music. Henry Manfredini says that they only wanted the music to appear, when the killer is present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So those jump scares, or whatever, if the killer's not around, the music doesn't fire up.
Yeah. There is one exception. And that is there's music when we first see Ralph, the town loony,
right,
turns up to tell them they're all doomed. But what I love about the music is I love film scores that have defined creative barriers like this, that have set up rules. I think they work really well. And so Manfredini, he had the job of creating a score that would represent the killer in absence. So it sort of cues the audience to the killer's invisible menace, and this is something that was also done in the 1975 film Jaws, which that was a key thing to do because Jaws was quite well known for being not a very scary looking fake shark, so they had to come up with ways to create the menace without actually seeing him. So similar sort of deal here. So also the music sort of cuts out when something was going to happen, so the audience would relax a little bit, and then the scare is made a little bit more effective. So you'd have all this suspenseful stuff, and then that would stop, and you think, oh, okay, nothing's going to happen, and then bang, something happens, and the music goes nuts again. The director, Sean Cunningham, he wanted a choir in the score, but the budget wouldn't allow that. He wanted something akin to the music of Krzysztof Penderecki, who I think is a Polish, pretty sure he's a Polish 20th century orchestral composer, and much of his work includes voices that utilize strange pronunciations and vocal effects, which are quite disturbing. So instead, Manfredini came up with the idea to whisper vocal sounds and feed them into a tape delay unit. And as you said earlier, you kind of hear them as chew rather than a ki and a ma, which is supposed to be suggestive of the words kill and mummy, I think. So yeah, the score was composed in a few weeks and recorded in a friend's basement, which is pretty impressive to get an orchestra in someone's fucking basement. That's awesome. The score also has a pretty heavy Bernard Herrmann influence, particularly the music of Psycho, which I'm sure you would have heard a little bit of that. So the
strings,
the cutting, stabbing, slashing strings, which was first done by Bernard Herrmann on Hitchcock's Psycho, and I think put on steroids in this particular film. It's augmented by brass and other instruments and stuff, and also that eerie kind of vocal stuff that's going on. But yeah, I think it's sort of Bernard Herrmann on steroids, and it's very effective.
Sheila, this film cost $550,000 back then, and it made something like 59 million. So I think that equates to, something astronomical today.
Yeah.
You said it's no good. I don't like it. All right, but some people do. So maybe we can come up with some theories.
No, that's great. I mean, what do you want me to try and find good things about it?
No, I want you to try and think about why. What is it that people respond to in this film?
Could be the animal cruelty. the killing of a snake on camera.
Oh, yes.
There was that, and actually throwing a cat to the point where it's like a bit disorientated when it comes through.
It was the Wild West back then.
Oh no, you could just kill animals. Look, no, I can just give you some things that I noticed.
Okay.
I found is it Alice, the main character? Yes. I know this is ludicrous, but her hair very distracting.
Why?
her pudding bowl haircut was next level.
She had the princess dye. That's the princess dye.
I lived through that era, and even then, those haircuts were fucking awful.
So really, that wasn't because I'm out of context. So I watch and I go, oh yeah, that was pretty crazy. They were crazy back then. They had mad haircuts.
That haircut was really distracting, and I loved how they put her in such a sensible shirt.
Right.
No,
it's true though. No, that's important. That's important. Like these things are important for her to be the final girl.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I liked the in 1 and 2. No doubt you've noticed the fifth wheel incel character of Ned. I didn't even clock the other guy. I don't know.
Practical Joker guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Ned and Ted.
Yeah, the incels. The guys who get nothing.
Yeah, Ned is actually he's given birth to a term here called the practical joker victim.
Right.
Believe it or not, which comes from a guy's book by the name of David Grove, who wrote a book called Making Friday the 13th, The Legend of Camp Blood. And I think he suggests that trope of the practical joker victim was born in this film.
They're always really unlikable, generally speaking. They're just, because as you say, they never ever get the pussy. and they're just losers. They're just like, I don't know, like,
He faked drowning to
that was big,
to pash on with that girl, and which I mean
that's coming up later.
Yeah. Show that. Oh yeah. Well, that's
you better believe that's coming up later. Actually, he's involved in some. Well, all of these camp movies now. This is that. Don't let the progressives say that there's no progress, because I watched this. And the Native American stuff in all of these camp movies is it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the cop saying, sit on it, Tonto.
Cochise.
That is next level. Yeah.
I don't really understand the deal with summer camp and Americans and why they're so rabid about it. But
we talked about this as well, so maybe we can expand upon it.
Yeah, we talked about this in Meatballs, but the whole Indian influence, or the faux American Indian influence throughout all this stuff too, surely they're not doing it today, but it seems like they did a lot of it back in the day.
Yeah. Is it sort of because you're getting back to nature and they're trying sort of in a really ham-fisted way trying to incorporate indigenous elements into their camp, like you're on the land and all of that?
I guess so. And they do outdoor activities like canoeing and archery is always, you always see that in
it's always tomahawks, and they do the full headdress, the full YMCA Village People headdress.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you can wear anymore.
No, you can't do that anymore. If you enjoy what we do here on the New Flesh podcast, there are a number of ways you can contribute to the success of the show. Consider supporting us financially by becoming a Patreon member and donating monthly or yearly. Alternatively, you can donate money through the Buy Me a Coffee platform. If you're strapped for cash at this point in time, there are a number of other ways to support the New Flesh. You can give us a rating or review through Apple Podcasts. These help others to find our show and help spread the word. Or you can tell your friends about us. Don't underestimate the power of a podcast recommendation. And now, back to the show.
I was always terrified as a kid that my parents were going to send me to a summer camp. Because,
Yeah.
you know, as a little kid growing up in the 70s, early 80s in Australia, you would, you know, all the midday movies had, you know, summer camps and stuff like that in them. And I remember constantly saying to my parents, you wouldn't send me somewhere like that, would you? And they're like, no, we don't do that in Australia. But I always had this fear of being sent off to one, because to me, they didn't, you know, they looked quite terrifying. But,
Yeah. I felt the same way as a kid. Like I would never go, especially for the length of time. It seems like they're there all summer. They're there for 3 months solid.
A different person is coming back to you, you know, like when you send your kid.
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
They come back and it's I don't know, it's literally a different person.
What were the parents doing the whole time? Just having the summer off, just having like cocktail parties and stuff.
Cocktails and swinging.
Okay.
There's too much we don't know though about that time. Like I don't, because it's, you know, maybe some of our American listeners could fill us in, but like we don't know what the economic situation. The 70s wasn't a good time. The economy wasn't good, so I don't know.
They look expensive, you know, those summer camps.
I think so.
Well, Camp Crystal Lake doesn't look expensive. That looks pretty bottom tier, but yeah, a lot of them do.
Yeah.
So the film is like, it's, you know, it's such interesting, you know. I think that one of the things that we enjoy is the thing that I think defines cinema itself, and that's voyeurism. You know, voyeurism is just so heavy in these films, and I think it you know, because the film uses that phantom POV a lot as well. But there's a lot of peeping, you know, and now I know peeping isn't as big now as it was, but you know, at the end of the day, what people forget about peeping is just like, oh, peeping, that's disgusting, and voyeurism is disgusting. You say, bro, do you understand that with a film, you're literally Hollow Man? Like, you're an invisible person in a room watching people do everything. Like, that cinema is voyeurism, you know, and these films are a little bit more honest about it. And the best films, horror films and whatnot, really play with that and get everyone watching everyone. We're watching them, watching someone else, you know, and everyone's breaking the rules. So, but ultimately, and look, don't get me wrong, this film isn't Jaws. It doesn't have Spielberg, doesn't have that skill, doesn't have you know, those actors. It's not The Exorcist for the same reasons. It's not The Shining. And you know what? It's not Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a better film, because Nightmare on Elm Street is actually very, very clever and you know, an idea for the ages, and based on, you know, sort of cases in Africa and whatnot that Wes Craven had looked into. But this film's wildly successful. This film's, I think, serving some kind of different purpose. You know, I really think it is a youth movement, you know, these films.
Yep.
But maybe I can get into that a bit more later. I've got a great review of the second one from our mate Roger Ebert.
Ah, of course.
Yes.
He famously hates horror movies.
Yes.
I've got a question for you, Sheila.
Yeah.
Are Jason and his mum serial killer cock blockers? Is that the point of the film?
How do you mean?
Well, they don't want anyone to have sex. They just can't stand it. They're blocking those cocks.
Yes. So I think Mrs. Old Lady Voorhees took exception to Jason drowning while, and this was actually one of the grossest things that she said. It was along the lines of, they weren't watching him, they were making love, you know, like not having sex, they were making love.
I told you, people who say making love, it's always creepier.
It is.
Never not creepy.
So yes, I think you are correct, Ricky. She does not want anyone to have sex because that's how Jason drowned. But did he really drown? I don't understand. Why is he back? If he drowned, and why is he in a state of decomposition in the lake? I don't understand. Is it supernatural?
Not yet.
What do you mean not yet?
Well, technically it doesn't get fully supernatural until number 4.
Okay. All right.
Like,
so
you can still hedge. I mean, it's bonkers, but you can still hedge a bit and say, oh no, he's mad strong, and they've sort of given him these serious looking flesh wounds even when they're in the head and stuff. But no one ever like chops his head off or burns him or puts him in acid. So it's only until the fourth one when you start to go, okay, he's dead. He's dead.
So why is he drowned? Do you know what I mean? Like, how can he, if it all started because he drowned,
Yes,
and he's in a state of decomposition at the end of the what?
Is he though?
I took that to be that was just Alice's dream, right?
Yes, it was. So
right.
So here's the chronology. So Jason drowns in 57. Okay. 58 are the first murders. Apparently, they're the two murders at the beginning of the first film.
Yes. Is that old lady Voorhees?
Yeah, apparently, yes.
Okay.
So for some reason, she takes 20 years off. She decides, you know what, I'm going to kick back. Just, you know.
Well, was the camp closed for 20 years? Is that?
Yeah, she's just going to like go and get a proper job, like, you know, just do America, whatever, like just have a good time. But then she decides that she wants to get the band back together. So around, I think, 1979,
right,
she comes back to nail the new group in the first one.
Yes.
At the end of the first film, that image after she's decapitated, Alice getting pulled into the lake by decomposing Jason, which is a trope of the series, is sort of set up as a dream, mildly ambiguous, but that's a dream. Whereas, and then which is different in the second one.
So where has he come from?
In the second one?
Well, that's the mystery, isn't it?
Well, that's we can talk about that when we talk about the second one, but I feel like
I'm so confused. I know I should have my head around this a bit better, but it just okay. Well, that's good. You've cleared that up. That was a dream. All right.
Yes. But it sort of has this surreal yes and improvisational quality to it. You know, this series. Like they seem to have at a few points gone, yes, and then that's why it gets so bonkers, you know. Because if they'd been too logical about it, like I really don't think we'd be where we are. We wouldn't have all these movies. So it's something about
he wouldn't have gone into space and become a cyborg through nanotechnology.
Evil gets an upgrade.
Evil gets an upgrade. Yes.
So so I think that's part of the joy of the film is that they really have just run with it, and you know, nothing was off the table, is what I'm saying.
Truly,
you know?
Nothing was. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You've cleared that up for me.
Yeah, good. Okay. Well, Me Too stuff in this particular movie. So in 1957, the counselor, you know, one of the counselors lies to get some action. I think she said I was special, and he says, yeah, that's, you know, she says whatever, and then so that's lies to get sex. Gaslighting, you know. Enos, the guy who drives he's the truck driver who drives Annie, the hitchhiker, the hot hitchhiker to the camp. He says all the girls up there gonna look good as you, and then he grabs her ass when he pushes her into the truck. So I mean, that
he was just helping
her up to get you. Yeah, it's helping her up, but like, you know, I mean, Aziz Ansari didn't do much more, and look at him, he's gone. So is sex all you ever think about? No, sometimes I just think about kissing women. You know, that's what a guy says in the car. I think that practical joke. I think what he's leaving out is probably without their consent is probably what he's thinking.
While they're asleep.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was just a bit of a kissy kiss, you know, just, you know, whatever. Steve lectures onto Alice. He says, "You're very talented. You're very pretty." Then just touches her face. Was this something that was the thing to do in the 70s? Could you just say...
Was it implied that they had a relationship previously, though? I thought that's what it was.
It was, but it looked like she'd gone cold on it.
Yeah.
So, but think about that. Like, imagine even saying you look pretty today. Imagine that. Imagine like a red button would be pressed, mushroom cloud, you know? Like you go, oh, you look pretty today. And someone goes, so just go, what the fuck? Who the fuck do you think you are? And then you go, oh, sorry, I just think it's a pretty dress. And they go, just what the fuck? You know? They just launch across the table and kick the shit out of you.
But I tell you, Alice dealt with it the way we all used to deal with it, which is like just sort of give it a, you know, an uncomfortable look, and then she just got on with her day. She just walked off and just and went on. She went on to the next thing and went down to get that guy for some paint thinner.
She manfully just put up with it.
she just, honestly, it was so rife. You know, that would have been the 70th time that had happened to her, you know, that month. So she just sort of shrugged it off and went, okay, gross.
Because that guy, you know that Steve was,
you know,
because what Steve is building up to is the big slam back in the day, which I think we should bring back sometimes, is to say, you're frigid.
Yeah.
I think tonight I might just call Katie frigid.
Yeah.
You're frigid, baby. You're frigid. And which I believe comes from the frigid air.
Yeah.
Perhaps. So Ned, the practical joker, he fakes death to get a bit of a kissy kiss during the mouth to mouth, which again is that's enough to ruin you. Ralph gains entry to the house to tell them about the curse. He's inside. It's crazy Ralph, but I think he also
he's in the pantry.
He is in the pantry, and he kind of, I think, is just up for whatever, you know.
Just doing some
peeping, and he's giving you the information you need to know. But if a titty pops out and he's there, he wouldn't kick it out of bed. And really, the biggest crimes are just the endless showering and changing that we see, which is all on the menu. I think it's a different time. Like, you know, back then, I guess they were just like, you know, there wasn't the ubiquity of flash on the internet that we have. So, and all of those things seem to mean more, you know, I guess. They were more charged.
I feel like they could have gone further.
Of course you did. You think, but then again, do you think that this would have reviled? Like, people would have thought that this was pornography.
Well,
no, it was the
director,
70s though. I mean, there was a lot of it. Sorry, you go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I had a bit of trivia here. The director actually had a history of directing softcore porn, as did Wes Craven. So
fabulous. Well, you guys missed some reverse sort of Me Too.
Oh, the bar, the woman at the bar? Is that
no, it was Sandy at the coffee shop.
Yes.
Sandy, the saucy old bitch that she is. He said, "How much will that be, Sandy?" And she goes, "A night on the town." So she sleazed onto him, which was pretty hot.
It would be like in Kingpin, you know, with the woman movie.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah.
Does she turn around? Does that the woman who turns around and goes, blah,
yeah. So, you know, Sandy.
You remember that, Ricky?
I do.
Yeah. It's a great scene. It's a great scene in Kingpin.
Let's watch Kingpin. I forgot about it.
But yeah, so, you know, Sandy's hitting the Me Too heights.
Yes.
Well, hashtag men too.
Yes.
Yes.
Hashtag not all men.
Well, look, we've got to give props to the film, at least because of the gender of the villain, you know, which
yes, absolutely. I liked that.
Yeah.
I liked Mrs. Voorhees being the killer.
And if she was a bit more like Vasquez,
yes,
from Aliens, then I might believe it a bit more. It's just that, you know, so they've gone for a spectacular twist, but then they haven't really cared about anything that they've done that person's had to do in the movie before that. As you say, the body going through the window, you just go, oh my God, like, do you know how heavy that is? Like, Jesus.
And
you know?
the impracticality of the spear going through Kevin Bacon's chest. But I saw the length of that spear, and it's not really possible that spear went under the bed.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I think you're overthinking things, Sheila.
Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted me to be well, you know.
No, you've done your research. I appreciate it.
No, it's good. It's good.
I'm pretty sure that you guys are surprised. I don't even read the articles for the news flash that I do.
Don't show me behind the curtain. Okay. I don't want to see how the sausage is made.
You know I don't read them. So I thought you'd be quite impressed that I made myself watch these and didn't just look up the wiki on them.
No, that's good. Should we bring in this second movie?
So what's our Me Too rating? What's the Me Too?
Well, what do you think? After I've given you the charges, what do you think out of 10?
Sheila, you go first.
Oh, look, given the time it was made and stuff like that, I'm just going to give it a 7.
Yeah, it's pretty high. I was going to give it 6.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's 6. I think it's a 6 because, it just, I feel like, no, it's pretty bad. Maybe a 7. No, it's not just like there's stuff in it, but tonally, it just seems like a lot of ignorance, a lot of it, whereas, we've watched other ones like Stripes and stuff, which was, just, it was about 2 sex pests. Who joined the army?
Yeah. This
This
is young people horsing around.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, young people horsing around. I mean, Ned's sex assault when he pretends to be dead. I mean, it's pretty terrible. But I mean, no, in general, not too bad.
Some of this shit's still going on though out there.
Oh, yeah.
And
young people are choking each other. That's their thing. So
what do you mean that's their thing?
If they had a catch cry, it'd just be we're woke and we choke each other.
Let's go. I can't talk.
I just came up with that. You like it?
That's good.
Can we steal it?
Wokey chokies. That's what I'm going to call them.
Well, before we get on to the second one, let's just talk reviews, and I got a couple of tidbits of trivia. As you would expect, all the reviews were negative. Los Angeles Times referred to the film as silly, boring, youth-geared horror movie, although she did praise the score. Let me see. Oh, she also praised the acting as well, believe it or not, Sheila. She deemed it natural and appealing. So there you go. Variety, however, deemed the film low budget in the worst sense, with no apparent talent or intelligence to offset its technical inadequacies. Friday the 13th has nothing to exploit but its title. And on it goes for that. So in terms of trivia, I think you already covered this a little bit, Astro, where they sold the film on the title alone. They took out a full-page ad in Variety, and they were able to finance the film based solely off that. So, that's how they got the deal done.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. You got to give it up. People just need to just check the green-eyed monster and give it up. Like, that is brilliant. It doesn't fuck what you think of the movie. Having the balls to take out that ad and to recognize that that title is Boss, and it had tagline as well, saying the most terrifying movie you'll ever see or whatever. I mean, that's like Barnum and Bailey stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
Love it. Love all that.
Also, Siskel and Ebert on their show, they hated the movie so much they gave away the ending in the review.
Oh wow! Pricks!
Come on!
What a couple of old pricks!
Absolutely.
I know. They slammed it in a special edition of their show called "The War on Women," which focused on misogynistic slasher movies. But they failed to notice that a lot of men are also killed in this movie, and the survivor is a woman. But as you would expect, all of this just boosted ticket sales. So,
all right. Well, we'll move on to number 2. 2 months have passed since the murders at Camp Crystal Lake, and thankfully everyone's moved on. Alice, our hero, who survived the first film, is now taking some time to herself in another lonely little cottage, seemingly not too far away from the infamous camp. Inadvisable. After a very helpful dream sequence recapping the entire ending of the first film, she discovers a decomposing severed head in the refrigerator before she's murdered with an ice pick through the skull by a man in a check shirt. Years later, a new set of teens roll up to Crystal Lake, but don't worry, it's on the other side of the river. Crazy Ralph informs them that they're all doomed. Chiseled Paul Holt is the head counselor charged with bringing the potential counselors up to spec. There's the jokester Ted, braless hippie Sandra and her boyfriend Jeff, braless hardbody Terry, who is pursued by sex pest Scott, Vicky, who's got the hots for Mark, the hunk on wheels, and there's also Ginny, our girl next door and budding child psychologist. Paul tells a campfire story about Jason Voorhees, the boy who drowned because of lazy, sex-hungry counselors. thus spurring on his mother to pull off 2 murder sprees. He plants the idea that Jason's body was never found and that he's been living in the woods all this time, waiting to have his vengeance. After a prank from Ted, Paul tells everyone that it's just a story and that Crystal Lake's off limits. Crazy Ralph is perving on the nubiles when he's garroted by barbed wire. Hippie Sandra and Jeff sneak into Camp Crystal Lake and find the remnants of an animal before they're caught by Deputy Winslow, our hapless cop. Winslow's the next to get it. He spots and chases a man with a burlap sack on his head into the woods and gets a hammer claw to the back of the head. The counsellors split up for one last hurrah before the course begins. Ginny has a drunken theory that Jason might be out there still, traumatized and unable to distinguish between right and wrong. The counsellors are picked off one by one. Ginny and Paul are jumped by the killer, and Paul is seemingly dispatched. Ginny is chased all the way to the killer's lair, filled not just with the fresh bodies of her fellow counsellors, but with the rotting head and dirty old sweater of Mrs. Voorhees, which all but confirms that the killer is Jason. Ginny uses her smarts and her child-psych skills to don the sweater and trick Jason, but he comes to just before she can land the final blow. Paul returns. He's not dead. As he wrestles with Jason, Ginny grabs a machete and brings it down on Jason's shoulder. Pretty deep wound. Paul and Ginny return to their cabin, and just when they think they're safe, an unmasked and rather sort of deformed-looking Jason bursts through the windows and grabs Ginny. That's number 2. What did we think?
I think for this second installment, they've stepped up a level in relation to the birds, I think.
Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. I said my thing, the birds are hotter. I've written that down. Oh my God. And I wrote birds as well.
Yeah. The chicks in this film are way hot and DTF. Yep. And we got to see a little George Bush as well.
Yes, all of that is true. Isn't it amazing that we all agreed that the quality of women had gone up?
Yeah.
I go further as well. Now, because the last one was in 1980, it sort of had this sort of hangover 1970s aesthetic and vibe about the whole film. The times are changing. Terry in this movie is a proto hardbody.
Yeah.
Like that is not a 70s look that she's got. You know what I mean?
80s aerobics.
Yeah,
yes.
The bare midriff.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. It's because there are some 70s elements in this as well. You know, I think eras always overlap, but I really was starting to notice the 80s, taking over in this. I was like, wow.
The Jane Fonda effect.
Yes. So that was interesting. But I love that we all noted that the women were hot.
Yes. Although I will say there was one character who looked inappropriately young.
She was, actually.
Yeah, 16, wasn't she?
16.
Oh, come on. Really?
They had to cut her nude scene.
They did.
Shit.
And they found out all too late. Like, so in other words, that like they in the stroke of just in an instant they became criminals.
Oh my goodness. Had no one thought to check her age?
70s, just loose set up,
Oh, crumbs.
So anyway, that's the hippie.
Yeah, the one with the fuller hair.
But the thing about what I don't get about that is, like, I know that parenting's different, times are different, but what the fuck is the deal? Like, why is there just like, heaven forbid she should have parents or guardians, that were looking into this, or that anyone looked at forms, or like, you know what I mean?
They thought she was at summer camp.
Yeah, but I mean, Brooke Shields was what? Was she 16 when she did Blue Lagoon? Like it was very, and also I think Brooke Shields was 11 when she let that famous photographer, when her mum let that famous photographer take nude shots of her. So, it was a very different sort of atmosphere. Parents weren't as responsible, probably.
Don Draper.
Yeah.
Sally. Yes. So anyway, I think I liked the second one. Well,
I did too.
It kind of goes. I like them more and more as they go along, pretty much. And this is where it starts. I really preferred this one, and they'd found their feet, and there was a effort to attempt to integrate the lead girl, Ginny, into this story a bit better. She was they at least gave her that background of, as clumsily as it was introduced, of her being a child psych, and then she uses that skill. She firstly, theorizes about Jason, and then she and then uses that skill at the end, which is that's an improvement, a definite improvement. Different screenwriter than the first one. We have to give credit to the first screenwriter for casually coming up with. I'm sure Sean Cunningham had his own ideas, but we have to go with who's credited, and the original writer has casually come up with this entire mythology that everyone else is using, but this guy has definitely improved upon it. Anything notable?
A really hot dude with a slingshot shooting some pebbles at hot chicks' asses as they walk past, and then sleazily coming out of the bushes and just going, and
he steals her clothes later when she's skinny dipping.
This is all on the rap sheet, don't worry.
It is. Yeah, I'm sure.
But they've made him super hot. So
you thought that guy was hot? That's Scott.
Yeah, Scott's hot.
Why is Scott hot?
Because he's got that Superman look about him. He's got the raven black hair and the crystal blue eyes, and he's well put together. He's wearing he's wearing an outfit that, like from Saturday Night Fever, at the camp.
Leisure suit.
Yeah, well, he's
So you're willing to look past the slingshot and the theft of clothing?
As a parent, no, but as a female who if I wasn't being recorded, yes.
How much can a sex pest get away with if he's put together?
Well, you ask Leonardo DiCaprio, where's his Metoo shit?
So true.
Do you know what I mean? The man just goes out with younger and younger women, and nobody ever says, "Oh, that's repulsive." Whereas,
apart from Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, well, good, he calls it. But, people like Rod Stewart, who are a little bit NQR and go out with younger and younger women, everyone's just like, oh, gross. So, he's on the same trajectory as that. But, I don't find him attractive, but a lot of people
So what you're saying is if you're good looking, you can pretty much get away with anything.
Well, I think that's hot privilege, isn't it? I don't endorse that. I don't endorse.
So if Harvey Weinstein was a good-looking bloke, he wouldn't be in jail right now.
We've talked about this. He's disgusting.
Well, Matt Lauer's still running around, isn't he?
Well,
and he had a button in his office apparently to lock the door.
He did have an Austin Powers style button, but I don't know. His baldingness, I think, maybe did him in as well.
Right.
Better hair.
Well, I think that, sex pestry is a disgrace. It doesn't matter if you're good looking or if you're not as good looking.
But Catherine Deneuve says that she doesn't mind a bit of it.
Oh, do you mean like with the ass patting and stuff like that?
The French, Catherine Deneuve and the women of France.
They've got different rules.
The women of France have said, we don't want this American rules. We kind of like playing hard to get, we like a slap on the behind.
Yeah, look, I guess every country's got different rules, like the Japanese women having to wear heels to the office and stuff like that.
The Labor Minister, I remember that. The Labor Minister said that it's perfectly fine. He said, no, I think it looks good. Or something.
Which is disgraceful. But being a sex pest is disgraceful. Right. But yes, I do think that hotter people get away with being sex pests.
Okay, speaking of not hot people, Jason Voorhees makes his first appearance in this movie as the lead killer. I think he steals the show. Because they fixed that logic hole that we pointed out. Where
did he come from?
Where's he been?
Well, they've fixed one and they've ruined more. Is what I'm saying. So what they've done, so you've rightly pointed out that it makes it quite tragic in a way, because poor Jason was out there all this time while his mother's been stalking around like ships in the night. They never met, So one simple turn, it's made it quite tragic and stupid at the same time.
So you're telling me that while old lady Voorhees, for seemingly 20 or 30 years,
she was probably 45,
skulking around
70s, 45.
Okay. Well, no, she's been skulking around that forest in the dark.
Yes.
And Jason's been skulking around in the forest in the dark.
It's like in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet at the end when they, just a second they missed each other, So
Baz Luhrmann didn't write Romeo and Juliet.
No, I know, but that was what the
why
reason
didn't you say Shakespeare? Why didn't you say Shakespeare?
No, screw you. The reason I did is because that shit's not in the play. There you go. I said it. So the smarty pants who were listening, I said Baz Luhrmann because he made that shit up. Okay, that thing at the end. They didn't saw each other, and
yes.
Anyway, so that is quite tragic, but ludicrous. So because they just want you to go all in, like on Jason so quick, and and he's got the head of his mum. And it's taken me a lot of viewings to really even register that it's the same head from the beginning. Because the timeline, these movies, the early ones particularly, are quite European in the way they deliver information. So American films typically, or even just modern films, whatever, like there's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of, really big breadcrumbs. Like we'll just say it. We'll have a big crawl at the beginning that'll explain the whole setup. Characters will just say, hey, remember when we did this thing? You know what I mean? Like I was watching Taken the other night and one character was like, remember when we did, and they just went through a list of stuff basically that they did or that you had to know. And I went, oh yeah, now I know all that. So these movies are very European. They're not saying anything. And I really respect that. Now, it was probably just because, a mixture of they're moving quickly, they're young, they're low budget or whatever. I don't care really why, but there's so many things in these early few movies that are ambiguous, either knowingly or unknowingly. And I think it makes it really clever because, you get that dumb shit where we just say, wait a minute, they've both been in the woods together, and that doesn't make sense. But like there's stuff like they always just go with the feeling, like the way Dario Argento doesn't care about the story. He cares about feeling and emotion, and so the head at the beginning and the head at the end of this movie, at no point does anyone, if this was a modern movie or if they were remaking it, I'm almost certain with that beat, someone would say, like would explain all about the head. You know what I mean? Like they tell you everything about it, how he got it,
where he stashed it,
like, and that you would be clear. There'd even be there's not even any dates on this movie. So you actually have to watch it a bunch of times to figure out, really pay attention carefully to that. There's a 5-year gap between the first scene of number 2 and the rest of the movie. So if you look at the head is like, desiccated at the end. It's like the Beetlejuice head. Whereas at the beginning, it's fresh. It's like a couple of months. So Tom Savini, the brilliant FX guy, well, actually, I don't know if he was on the second one, but whoever the FX guy is, he wasn't. Well, there you go. So the FX guys just had to think about that. Okay, we need 2 heads. One of them's got to be like all dried. The other one has to be sort of a bit fresh. It's mad.
Originally, they had the eyes open at the end.
You're waiting for that, aren't you? I'm waiting for it.
Yeah,
every time.
But then they didn't do it.
I love it, but why? That really pisses me off. Only because why? Like I know that they went a different direction after that. Like but when you think about it, it works emotionally. And why is it any sillier than anything else?
True. Yeah.
Do you know why? Why are they getting all embarrassed then? Like, oh, we can't have the eyes open. That's just silly. And you say, is it? Is that silly?
I think that's the quote that I think the director said that would be too silly.
And you say, well, why don't you just have it be, a quote dream or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know. That could be the new thing because they repeat the beat, of Jason at the end.
Yeah.
Coming through. terrifying looking, like Wolfman Jason.
But they change his look in the third one, don't they?
Oh, they change his look in every film. That's part of the joy of the film. It's like,
Right.
He's different in every film. I mean, there is a main actor who takes over later, Kane Hodder, and he is Jason now. Like, you can't imagine anyone else being him, but still, his facial features, like, change in every single film, and they have a lot of fun with that. And you just go, wow, this is a really different look. Whereas this look is, this is like Wolfman Jason. Like, he's got long hair, mad looking face. I don't know.
One scene that really got me was that when who is it? Ginny is hiding under the bed, and Jason's kind of like looking for her, and then she sees a rat, and it's sort of crawling up near her face and stuff, and then you just see a pile of her piss.
10 out of 10.
I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they just did that.
People pissing themselves in scary movies is just full commitment. I love it. Happens in Ransom as well. The kid does that. It's just so, visceral and it's probably one of the most realistic parts of the movie, because you just go, well, yep, that'd probably be about right. I love it. That's a great scene.
It's full on.
Another progressive turn in this. We've got a guy in a wheelchair.
Yes.
So, I mean, these films just get anything that didn't happen 2 seconds ago is labeled a colonialist, disgusting, just, white is right or something pamphlet. And yet, these people are just trying their best in 1980 with the world they lived in, and here we have, actually it was great because, as we said before, he's not a Mary Sue. He was like a condescending, like overly skilled or fucking sassy guy.
He wasn't a brilliant hacker or coder.
He'd be sassy. Oh, he'd be so sassy now. He'd just be like, ridiculous or like, or really overly skilled.
Yeah.
But instead, he was realistically cool, and he was totally going to get laid. Yeah, and he got an equal opportunity death.
I thought that sending him down the stairs was a bit unfair. That was, but
that is a product of
I know.
His wheelchair.
No, he was a really cool character, and I really reveled in the inclusivity of it, and the fact that he was, like you said, he was a Mac. That chick was gagging for him, and
she was so aggressive.
I know, and
I loved it.
But he was also, he wasn't. He was written really well. He was just a confident, nice guy.
But here's the thing: you can always pick, sort of discriminatory people, or to be frank with you, a lot of people on the hard left are, this way. You can always pick them they don't want to treat people the same or equally. You know what I mean? They don't want to give him the equal opportunity death, or, have him just, they want to go, they need victims. They want you to be their victim. Do you know what I mean? So I thought this was just so playing it straight, and really, really great. Loved it.
So if they remade it, he would be the final girl.
Of course he would be. Of course he would be.
What do you think about a chick asking a guy in a wheelchair if his dick still works?
What's real? Well, I don't know if it's real, but it's certainly, she's just saying the silent part out loud. But she didn't say, it wasn't like she was grossed out. She asked, like, she was flirting and asking.
Yeah, I know.
And then he was, he hit it back over the net and was like, I do all right or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think it was tasteful. That conversation was quite tasteful. It was, she sort of skirted around, I mean, she wanted to be with him no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think it was, the inference was, well, okay, how are we going to sort of get this squared away, and she was just looking for a little bit more information as to how she was going to have her way with that hunky man.
I think it might have been in the consciousness because of Hal Ashby's coming home with Jane Fonda and John Voight. He was, famous. There's a famous love scene, and he's a veteran in a wheelchair and stuff. And I think that had sort of, really captured everyone, and not too long before. So around about the same time. Don't quote me. But yeah, great stuff. So our mate Ebert is back on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just read you some of his review here. Stay with me. He says,
Did he give away the ending?
He's given away a bunch. He says, I saw Friday the 13th Part 2 at the Virginia Theatre, a former vaudeville house in my hometown of wherever. The late show was half filled with high school and college students, and as the lights went down, I experienced a brief wave of nostalgia. In this very theatre, on countless Friday nights, I'd gone with a date to the movies. My nostalgia lasted for the first 2 minutes of the movie. The pre-title sequence showed one of the heroines of the original Friday the 13th alone at home. She has nightmares, wakes up, undresses, is stalked by the camera, hears a noise in the kitchen. She tiptoes into the kitchen. Through the open window, a cat springs into the room. The audience screamed loudly and happily. It's fun to be scared. Then an unidentified man sunk an ice pick into the girl's brain, and for me, the fun stopped. The audience, however, carried on. It is a tradition to be loud during these movies, I guess. After a batch of young counselors turns up for training at the summer camp, a girl goes out walking alone at night. Everybody in the audience imitated hoot, howls, and hyenas. Another girl went to her room and started to undress. 5 guys sitting together started to chant, "We want boobs." Man, the 1980s
sounds about right.
Were a good time, eh? So the plot in the original movie, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all right. So to skip down a bit, he says, the movie's a cross between the mad slasher and dead teenager genres. About 24 movies a year feature a mad killer going berserk. And they're all about as bad as this one. Some have a little more plot, some a little less. It doesn't matter. Sinking into my seat in this movie theater from my childhood, I remembered the movie fantasies when I was a kid. They involved teenagers who fell in love, made out with each other, customized their cars, listened to rock and roll, and were rebels without causes. Neither the kids in those movies nor the kids watching them would have understood a worldview in which the primary function of teenagers is to be hacked to death. This review will suffice for the Friday the 13th film of your choice.
It would be so much fun to be in that theater.
It's so funny perspective, isn't it? Like, I do, like, particularly maybe after COVID-19 and the decline of movies in general, and you can literally only see Marvel movies and Dwayne the Rock Johnson movies now. There's no other movies,
Yeah.
So the idea of going, what Ebert's missing is he doesn't know how good he's got it, and how bad it was going to get. I think what we've lost is the collective experience. We've got this access to all of this content now, but what movies need and what this movie was made for is a collective experience. It wasn't made to be watched on video. It was made to be watched with other people, and that's why it's hard. That's why these films are really weird to watch, but particularly the first few pre-videotape films, is because they're not made to be watched the way we're watching them. They're made to be, we go out on a Friday night and, we either laugh, or we nervously laugh, or we jump in our seats or whatever. And I get why Ebert isn't a fan, because it's a shock. He was seeing the debasing of an art form. The 70s, was a rough time. But some brilliant, obviously the brilliant movies. But then again, he should wake up to himself, because why is it okay? Why would it have been okay to see bodies from soldiers wrapped in flags coming home from Vietnam? And what does he expect everyone to do? Just watch Fred Astaire and Shirley Temple? The world's moved on. You've got to move with the times. And these films were serving a function, of giving young people an experience that they really identified with, something about it, something about the morals that, and the blood and gore. I think it's probably replicating how they feel. You know what I mean? The characters are 2D. Jason and his mother are more fleshed out than the counselors. There's more time and care spent on Tom Savini's FX than anything else. But as I say, it's kind of like a Punch and Judy show, sex and violence that are meant to be seen with an audience. And, there's room in the film left for our laughter and screaming and jumping and chatting even, it's not meant, you're not meant to sit there and watch every second of it. Like, you know, I don't think anyway. So out of its context, it's very strange.
If I can jump in on that one, everything that you have just said is true, especially sort of like the 80s. I can't, speak for late 70s because I couldn't go to the cinema on my own, but certainly early 80s, like even going to see a horror film was very much a theatrical experience, because the one that sticks in my mind is going to see Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors.
Oh, great film.
It was very much, because it was a cast of young people. The cinema was full of young people my age. We'd snuck in because we were a bit younger, and it was very interactive. You had people screaming, yelling, people going, "Come on, Freddie!" Stuff, that kind of stuff. It was really, as you just said, it was meant to be seen in a group of people, and it was it was quite exciting, and the reaction of the crowds and stuff like that was very much, I guess, what you're talking about. That's
cinema, and that's we're for the moment we don't have a solve for this. These Netflix series, as good as they can be, and are not filling the void. We need a big film to go and sit down and to to experience together. So I don't know how we get back to that, because the analogs just aren't working. I mean, that's why I want to go see this new Bond or whatever. I don't care what it's like, to be honest. I just want to see a big movie, with a bunch of other people, and and experience it. And I think that's what these films are perfectly made for. And Ebert is, just sitting there going, "Oh, geez, those were the days." And I really he should have just like maybe centered himself and looked around and said, "You know what? Like, I don't understand this generation, but they're experiencing something together, and they're working through something." And I think when they leave this cinema, despite me not liking this movie, I think they're going to be, if it is true, as has been said, that the good dream of what the bad do, then these people will leave this cinema, flushed with blood, revved up, ready to live their life, and have gone through some kind of positive experience. But I think that he's let the bad guys win a little bit here, Ebert.
Shall we address the Metoo crimes?
Yes. Okay. So it's a bit shorter here because we've covered some of them. So yeah, obviously a lot of getting changed. Ginny's got some getting changed action. I thought that Ginny was such a probably. I love these what do you say? Just these girl next door types. Like it would be so. Now this is an old reference, and I'm acknowledging that, but it's just because she's, I think, stands out in my mind as being representative of this. It would be different if it was like Megan Fox back in the day. Like Megan Fox is who they would get now, and you just or whoever the new one is, it doesn't even matter. Even if it was Zendaya or whatever, it would still be someone who you just go, oh, you're not the girl next door, So anyway, Ginny getting changed, not on. So I think the biggest crime in this movie is two things. Well, the first thing is Paul, the head of the counselor. He gives some practical advice. Paul's advice to the female counselors. He says, if you're a woman, you're a woman, don't use perfume because of the bears. And then he says, keep clean during your menstrual cycle. Keep clean.
And the girls kind of look at each other and nod knowingly.
They know.
Yeah.
They know. They don't want to not keep clean. Because a bear will get them.
I felt that whole scene with Paul sort of outlining the rules, he did come across as a bit of a mansplainer, to be honest. He did say to Ginny at one point, use that psychology you've been studying, which felt a little bit condescending, mansplainy.
Yeah. Well, he was also, a sexual aggressor, so that's a problem. But so, Sheila, what do you think of that advice? Don't use perfume if you're a woman. Keep clean during your menstrual cycle. Is this good advice on a camp or?
That was just gross. It was just gross,
But then that the girl, I forget her name, the one that's gonna get it on with Mr. Wheelchair. She she puts perfume all over herself, and then she sprays some down there at a bush. So
yeah, well, she didn't follow the rules.
she's going to get eaten.
Are you saying she deserves what she gets? Because I feel like that was very there was a lot of, if you do this, you deserve subconsciously what you're about to get. Throughout both films, quite frankly, if you have sex, you're going to get it.
Well, we've talked about this before, and what I think it is, it's a reaction to the Reagan era conservatism around sex and nudity and stuff. So I think it's tongue in cheek, a reaction to that. Really, I mean, the filmmakers that do this, they don't believe that if you have sex, you should be killed. I think that is just a tongue in cheek middle finger to Reagan and his wife.
Well, yeah. So I think there's also it's so funny that expression, if you're a woman, it takes on a new meaning now today.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like imagine if I said, if you're a woman, blah blah blah, now I'd be cancelled for an entirely different reason. People would be like, do you mean all women? And I'd be like, sure. Just if you're all women, just keep clean during your menstrual cycle. And they go, well. And then they go, good. I'm glad you said all women. I go, yeah, no, but I was a pig. You should cancel me anyway. So anyway, the biggest crime, as we've outlined. Well, but secondly, these camp leaders all seem to be nailing their subordinates. That, I mean, life is life, and a lot of us meet people at work, meet partners at work and whatever. But at the same time, it's endemic here. Like there's always just some older white guy leader who's just casually nailing like the main subordinate, and she's not that into it. Like it's not a good relationship. It's always like he's like, come and help me at my camp or whatever, and then he's like, I don't know, you can fill in the rest. So the worst, we've talked about this, is Scott. Scott is a sex pest, although an attractive one, a sexual crime. So Terry, do you want to dance? He says, and she says no. And then he gaslights her by using the dog and stuff like that, which is a good trick actually. Like you just got to be weird, and then they'll fall for it. Shoots her butt with a slingshot, which I think I might put on Insta later because it was such a spectacular moment. And then he winks at her, the nod and the wink,
and she seems to not be that pissed off.
She's into it.
She's kind of into it, yeah.
She is. She was into it, Your Honor, is what you should say. And then finally, the skinny dipping. So she's skinny dipping, as you say. Member of the Bush family turns up, and Scott steals her clothes, and then chases him, I guess, and he's running away with them. And she's all like, "Oh, you silly Scott," So you still get the feeling that it was inevitable that they were going to end up together.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, some men do this. They just wear chicks down, and then the chick gives up and says, "Okay, let's get married."
Yeah, I had an ex-fiance that happened with.
Really?
Yeah. You have missed the chick changing her underpants into her and getting into her special sex underpants.
Yeah, that seemed real though. It's not.
But the underpants weren't that impressive.
Glenn's never had the privilege. He gets granny underpants. That's what he gets.
He loves it.
Yeah, he's gotten used to it. Yeah, okay. You think that's real?
But the idea. Well, no, I think what's real is that women aren't wearing sexy underwear, generally speaking. Just of a Tuesday,
and when they know they're gonna get some good action, they get into their nice.
But on the face of it, I can see the idea of sexy underwear at all, being used to entice a man for a man's pleasure. I can see why that would be seen as a distinct negative. You know what I mean? Because it's acknowledging that
the patriarchy sucks.
The patriarchy sucks, I guess, but it's also it's anything to do with men having any sort of sexual response, natural, unnatural, is disgusting. Is inherently disgusting. And if it happens, I mean, you shame on you, is what I'm saying, Ricky. Shame on you.
Oh.
Did you look at that hard body earlier in the movie and, let nature take its course? I bet you did. Well,
I did.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
I did pitch a tent in my pants.
Well, I didn't ask. But so the Metoo scale, that's the
Gross.
Metoo scale. These are the charges. Is this worse or?
I think it's worse.
It is worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one gets maybe an 8.
I think it's an 8.
Mm.
I think it's an 8.
An 8.
Yes, definitely. And as can happen with the Metoo scale, I enjoyed this film more. So all good stuff. All good stuff.
Final thought for you?
Yeah, come on.
Extreme cock blocking has never been so entertaining. Halloween meets meatballs.
That's good.
I like it.
That's good. Yeah, no, I can't top that today. Well, we'll roll on next week. We'll do 3 and 4, and I guarantee you, yeah, this was the deal.
Yep. And are we going to force Sheila now to do all the Friday the 13th?
I feel like we should. Like you
I think that should be her punishment.
You deserve it. Like you just came on out of the gates just talking about how much they suck. So you deserve it. They do get better, actually. I stand by it. My favourite ones are number 4 is fantastic. Number 3 was the first one I saw. Number 6 is probably one of the best ones. Number 7 is glorious. And 8, Jason Takes Manhattan is good too.
When does he go to space? I've seen parts of that one, and I'm a sci-fi nut, and I kind of like that one.
Jason X.
When does he go to space? And when does he go to hell? And when does he team up with Freddy?
Okay, that's a lot. But 9 is Jason Goes to Hell, I'm pretty sure. 10 is Jason X. And then we get into Freddy vs. Jason.
As someone who has never seen these films, I'm shocked to know there's 11 of them.
No, there's a remake too, so it's 12.
Oh,
fucking hell.
My God.
Okay, well, I think we should probably wrap it up. Sheila, thanks for filling in.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you on board.
Thank you very much.
So we said,
Till next time, long live the new flesh.
long live the new flesh.
God help us all.
I just can't stand it. They're blocking those cocks.
You're frigid.